Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel where we learn to be a better programmer. And this is part 4 of our Learn the MERN Stack video tutorial where we're building a full stack note-taking app using MongoDB, React, Node.js, and Express. In the last video, what we built was we set up our database schema and we created an account with MongoDB Atlas, which is our cloud database provider. And then in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to create routes, so get, post, delete, and put routes for not only our users, but also our notes classes in our database. So if you're interested in how to set up a database schema, you can find that video here. But if you just want to know how to set up routes using Express and link them with Mongoose and MongoDB, this is your video. And then what you can also do is you can clone the repo here at this branch location, and you can just follow along with the video. And all the code should work based on the other few previous parts in our series, okay? But before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. So here's where we are when we left off in our last video in our server.js, where we connected to our database using MongoDB and Mongoose, the Node.js wrapper, for the MongoDB API. And then we also created a dummy post route here. But we could actually put all of our routes for our application in this one server.js file, but it wouldn't be too maintainable because this file would get bloated and it's kind of hard to keep track of which routes respond to which queries, all right, and do what things. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to pull this out and refactor it into a notes file that will encapsulate all routes associated with the notes endpoint, and then we'll also have an auth file that's associated with all the create users and update users and such. So here's what we need to do. We actually need to install JSON Web Token. So we're going to say npm install JSON Web Token. All right. And we also need to install bcrypt.js. So npm install bcrypt.js. So that's all installed and we're good to go there. So I'm going to close my terminal, and I'm also going to get rid of this post route here. All right. So just to clean up our server code a bit. Okay. So now what we need to do is I'm going to create a new folder and call it routes. And then inside of the routes folder, I'm going to create two new files. So it's going to be notes.js and then new file auth.js. All right, so the auth file is going to take care of handling logging in users, signing up users, and signing in users, okay? So what this is going to look like, so we're going to need to pull in a few dependencies here. So we're going to say const express is equal to require express, and we're going to say const router is equal to express.router. This, and we're going to say const bcrypt is equal to require bcrypt.js, and then const JSON Web Token, JWT for short, I'm going to say require JSON Web Token, like that. All right, and last but not least, we're going to pull in const user is equal to require, and it's going to be up one directory, and we're going to say models user, like this. Awesome. So we pulled in bcrypt, and bcrypt is going to be used to hash our users' passwords. And then the JSON Web Token is basically going to be how we authenticate users without needing them to log back in. So this is just an auth token that signifies user is logged in, like that. Okay. And okay, so now let's start our first route. So this first route is going to be creating a brand new user. Okay, so it's going to be router.post, and then it's just going to be a simple /endpoint like this, and then it's going to be an async, and then we're going to say request response like this. And okay, so inside of this function, we're going to pull out a const username and a const username and password. like this. All right, and it's going to be destructured from the request body. All right, it's a pretty neat concept about JavaScript. So what this means is basically the body is going to have fields or parameters or values where a key is named username and also password. So these have to match whatever is inside of the body. So we'll have to remember that on the client side. So next, we're just going to do a really lightweight authentication for the password here. So we're just going to say if password.length is less than 6, then we say res.status 500.json, and we're going to send a message back. So password length must be greater than 6 characters, like that. Awesome. So that's, and then we just need to say return, just to make sure that we don't continue inside of this block. And then we just want to create a new user. So we're going to say let new user is equal to new user. And then inside we're going to pass in the user name. And then the password hash is going to be equal to bcrypt.hashSync password. And then we pass in a salt. So I'm just going to pass in 10. And then num notes is going to be equal to 0, like that. So this line right here is how we avoid storing the actual password in our database. So bcrypt has this function called hashSync, and if we command click on this, we see what it takes in. So it takes in the string to hash, all right, and then it takes in a salt, a number or a string, and then it returns a string. So what that means is the password is the string that we want to basically make. We're basically trying to make the password we're hashing that password to make it unrecognizable to a human. So basically we pass in this password and then we salt it. So salting it basically makes it unique in terms of, like, you can pass in 10, you can pass in, you know, a random string that will be put into the algorithm to just make it, to convolute the hashing function a little bit more. All right, so you can put whatever you want in here, either a number or a string, and then we synchronously hash that password. So that means this code will block the remaining code until it's finished. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to say new user dot save, and then so this returns a user. Like this. And then inside this block, we want to say jwt dot sign. And so this is how we return an auth token, or create an auth token to return to the client. So inside of this, we pass in what we want to sign the web token with, and then we're going to say username, new user dot username. So when this web token is authenticated on our server side, it's actually going to look to see if this username value is set, and if it is, we'll allow the user to make requests. All right. So then we say secret. So this is where you pass in the secret to help you decrypt the JSON web token. So this can just be any string that you prescribed, and this should actually not be contained as a hard-coded string in your file, but I'm just showing it for descriptive purposes. And then this takes in a callback, so we say error or token, and then basically if error, we just want to throw that error. Forgot a comma. All right, so if error, throw error, and then res.send like this, and then we pass in the token, and then the user is going to be, we just return that username. So we say username is equal to user.username, like this. All right, and Then at the end, we actually just want to catch. So catch error. And inside of this, we say console, we want to log this error just to see what it is. And then we're also just going to say res. Let me just scroll down and give some more space here. So we're going to say res.status of 500.json. And inside of here, the message is going to be some backticks, user, error.key value of username already exists. Try logging in. So what this is basically saying is the user already exists in the database, so we had an error trying to create it. All right. All right, so that's all we need to do for that. So that endpoint is the post endpoint. So this is what we use to create a user. So let's leave a comment, create a user. All right, so now let's go on to the next route, which is logging in. So we're just gonna say router.post, and then just say /login. And then this is gonna be a rec res like this. And we're gonna say const, username, password, similar to above, is equal to rec.body. And then inside, we're going to say user.find1 of username. And then then if user, so we're going to say if not user, then res.status.500 of 500.json, and then our message is going to be no user with that username, and then plus username like this, and then return, and then we say else if not bcrypt dot compare sync of password, comma user dot password hash like this. And basically, if this is basically saying if the password was incorrect. So we're saying res dot status of 500 dot JSON, and then message is invalid password like this. All right. So that handles this case where we get a user back, but the password is incorrect. So now what we need to do is we actually just need to take this JSON web token sign, and then we just copy it and paste it in here like this, and that's it. And then we say catch error, and then we say console.log error like this, and res.status of 500.send error like this. All right. So this is all we needed to do for auth and users. So now let's jump over to notes. All right, so in notes, we have a lot of similar stuff. So we need to const express is equal to require of express, like that. And then we're going to say const router is equal to express.router. And we need to pull in const note is equal to require models/note. And we're going to just copy this. And this is actually user, and this is user like that. All right. So now I'm going to create a helper function. So we're going to say const save note is equal to the note we want to save, and then the response object that we want to use to send a response. And then inside of this, we're going to say note.save, .then note, and res.json note. And then we catch And then if there's an error, we say res.status of 400.json. And then the message is going to be error, could not save the note, like that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create the get method for a particular user. So we're going to say router.get, like this, and then we're going to say rec res, and inside of this we're going to say note.find, where the author is equal to rec.username.username. All right, so this is, let me just finish writing this, and we're going to say then notes is equal to res.json notes. All right, so, and then we're just going to say catch, error, and then we just say res.json message could not find notes for that user. All right, so this line right here is basically saying find all the notes where the author is equal to the request.username.username. All right, so the request.username.username is a parameter that we're going to set in our middleware layer when we start to authenticate routes. All right, so don't worry too much about that right now, and it'll make sense in the next part of the tutorial. All right, so now we're going to say router.post, and inside of this, so this is when we're creating a note, we're going to say rec res, and then inside of here we're going to say const title body video link and video timestamp, and we're just going to extract that from the request body like this. And then we're going to say let note equal to new note of title, body is going to be json.parse body, and author is going to be rec.username.username, and video link and video timestamp. And then inside of this, we're just going to say save note of note and then res, like this. Okay, and we need to do something similar for the put request. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing and paste it down here, and then this is a put, and then instead it's going to take in a parameter as an ID. All right, and then we're also going to set the body as well. All right, so instead of this, what we're actually going to say is note.find by ID of rec.params.id. And then note is going to be, it returns a note, whoops, returns a note, and then inside of this we say note.title is equal to title, note.body is equal to rec or json.parse body, and then note.video link is equal to video link, like that, and then note.video timestamp is equal to timestamp, video timestamp, like that. And we're going to call save note on note and res, like this. And we can get rid of that line, and then we're just going to have a catch, and then res.json, and then inside of here the message is going to be no message or no note found with that ID. All right, cool. So this will allow us to edit a note without creating a new one. So we have the get notes for a particular user, create a new note for a particular user, update a note given an ID, and last but not least, we need to delete a note. So we're going to say router.delete, And then this route is just going to take in an ID param, and then we're just going to say rec res like this, and we're going to say note dot find by ID and delete of rec.params.id and dot then res.json deleted like this, and then catch, and then similarly we're going to say res.json, and then the message is going to be could not find note to delete, like that. And I can actually be a little bit more explicit in this one. So instead I'm going to say message deleted, like this. Awesome. Cool. So we've set up all of our routes. Actually, don't need a semicolon there. Put one here. So what we're going to do is inside of server, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it middleware. All right. Inside of middleware, I'm going to create a new file called auth.js, very similar to the user auth.js file down here, but don't get them confused. So in this file, I'm going to say const jwt is equal to require node modules, or I can actually, sorry, I'm going to actually just say JSON web token like this. Const auth is equal to, and it's going to take in a rec, a res, and a next. All right. So now inside of this function, I'm going to create a let public URLs is equal to, it's going to be a list of objects where URL is going to be /API/auth, and then the only one we're allowing is a post request. This. All right. Now let is public is equal to false. So this is basically saying we're going to check every route inside of this public URLs list and make sure that if the route is public, we just want to go to the next part of this request chain. So what this looks like is for var I is equal to 0, I is less than public URLs.length, I plus plus, and const URL comma method is equal to public URLs of I, and we're going to say if rec.url.includes URL and rec.params, or I'm sorry, rec.method is equal to method, then is public is equal to true, and then we break. So basically, if we have a URL that's a public URL, we're just going to set the is public flag to true, and then after this loop, we're going to say if is public, then we're just going to go to the next part of this request chain. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to say const token is equal to rec.header of x auth token, like this, whoops, like that. So that gets a token that the client is going to need to set in their headers. And then if we say if not token, so if the token isn't present, then we say res.status 401.json, and then we say message invalid token access denied, like that, and then we return. Otherwise, we're going to try, and inside this try block, we're going to say const decoded is going to be equal to jwt JSON web token dot verify of JSON dot parse token, and then the secret is secret. So this has to match what we, this has to match what we put inside of our auth.js routes over here. All right. So now, if the token is verified, we say rec.username is equal to, or username is equal to decoded, like that. All right, and then we call next. Otherwise, catch exception, and then we say res.status 400.json of message token is not valid, like that. All right, so now we have everything we need to do to have authenticated routes, and last but not least, we need to say module.exports is equal to auth, like that. All right, so now inside of our server.js, what we're going to need to do is add all of this functionality inside of there. All right, so all those routes we just added, what we're going to do is underneath the MongoDB stuff, what we're going to say is app.all, and for all routes, we're going to say API/star, auth. And we need to actually pull in auth above. So we're going to say const auth is equal to require of middleware, middleware/auth, like that. All right, so this is the function that we want to call when any endpoint hits that API value. All right. Now, then we want to say app.use for API/notes, and then we say require routes/notes. Whoops, like that. And then similarly, we say for notes, instead of notes, we say auth, and then we say auth, like this. So what this is basically saying is pulling in that router from the routes folder for each notes and auth. All right, so this is how we're able to keep our server file small and concise while still having all of that functionality. Okay, so what we did in this video is we created all of the routes for our CRUD functions on the notes that we create, update, read, and delete. And then for authentication, we added the ability to sign up and also to log in. And then what we did, we also created what is called an auth middleware, which will allow us to hide certain routes depending on the authentication level of a particular user. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please feel free to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave a comment below on anything that was unclear in the video. All right, thanks so much.